Hi, this is 31 Winty. I happen to be a chess arbiter VTuber, but I also play lead guitar in a metal band. Well, two metal bands actually, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak preview of my other job. And I'm going to give you this quick little tutorial first before I give you a little bit more insight on what I actually do. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of an engineering trick that you might be able to use the next time you want to put together your own custom guitar tone. I mean, an amp alone isn't going to fully captivate a tone in and of itself. It can depending on the amp, but if you want a unique guitar tone, it's not just one amp that usually does the job. You usually blend multiple. You usually blend multiple reamping files together. You usually blend multiple mics together. Sometimes you would go as far as it actually happens pretty much all the time, but you would often go as far as blend multiple amps together as well as multiple mics. But here's one way to speed up the process a little bit. So we have two impulse responses brought up here. This one's from the own hammer. This one's from the own hammer. The 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 modern low tuned essentials. This is the modern one from the low tuned essentials pack, and the other, the one above, is actually a custom impulse response I made. And we're going to use these two as an example of a minute example of blending two different IRs together to create a new IR. Normally I would even go as far as like blend like three or four or even eight different impulse responses together to form one tone. And if you just record an amp tone with one mic, that alone is never going to make a full guitar tone. You almost always have to blend two mics together minimum. But what this allows you to do is use the one impulse response because it's already a blend of multiple mics within that one file alone, and this allows you to use kind of save space a little bit, and then you can go as far as like blend like several different IRs together and create that as one IR to load. Sometimes like some amp plugins, like, well, not amp plugins, but like some impulse response loaders will only let you load one impulse response, and if you just blend them together and form another impulse response out of that, you already have that exact tone capture already saved. Well, not exactly tone capture, but you get the point. Anyway, so what we're going to do is, first things first, we're going to blend these two impulse responses together, but first we gotta get them in phase like this. And once we do, we have the whole thing recorded at 120 BPM, and then this is 1 second. Okay, it's 1 second exact. Okay, cool. What we're going to do now is we're going to create a new bus channel and put them into this bus channel, and then let's rename this like IR. And then what we're going to do is if we just blend them together like this normally, it clips. So what we're going to do is we're going to first things first, lower the volume on both these a little bit. Just 3 will do. And then we're going to use GST clip. I mean, you can use any soft clipper, but the, at the time this was available for free, so I grabbed it. So we need this to just under 0.3. I mean, 0.5 will also do the trick, but I'm just gonna do it like that, and then you have that. Yes, that's exactly what you want. And then when you now you just gotta bounce this as its own mono file. So what I'm going to do is use export stems and then IR blending trick IR, and you're gonna do it like that. I cannot give you the IR because obviously if I were to do that, then I'm going to end up in legal troubles because I'm using an IR that I bought to blend it with mine. But this is like I'll try to give I'll try to put I'll try to give you this IR because I think this IR will really help with especially like low tune stuff, because like low tune guitar stuff, because like what we did with this cab is that we recorded it with an SM57, but we also used a kick mic. You saw it in the shorts. We also used a kick drum mic on that same cab to blend the two together, and this is the result we got. So I'll at least upload this so that you can use one of your own impulse responses to try this yourself, or I'll link you the low tuned essentials so you can buy your own copy of low tuned essentials, and then yeah, we'll we'll check in a little bit after this gets imported. Okay, we were going to originally save this for another tutorial video, but we're just going to hop right into it. I'm going to reveal some more of what I do in the studio at home to like give you maybe it'll help some people, because like I know for a fact that most people who record 9 and 10 string guitars, they tend to just use plugins for amp tones, and I'm kind of sick of it. So we're actually going to um to do a reamping session, which is this right here. Uh, so this is a DI that I just added some stuff to like make it sound clearer. Um, Actually, let's also do this while we're here, yeah. And this, yeah, you actually do the low end trick a little bit early, and then you anyway. This is going into the reamp box, and from the reamp box it goes into this Joyo band amp amplifier. You can't really see it, but it's just the head by itself. It doesn't really need a load on its own because it's like the power section is solid state, so there is no load needed on this amplifier. That is going into the GutTech PDEQ pedal, which is basically a depth and presence control. The amplifier by itself isn't very full sounding or very pleasant on the top end. It just sounds screechy and what have you. So this is one of the reasons why most people turn away from using real amplifiers, because it's like, oh, they found a nice budget amplifier like this, and it sounds quote unquote terrible, and they just give up because a real good sounding amplifier costs a lot of money, and you have to get a load box with it and what have you, and it's just a mess. And this allows you to just this pedal allows you to get that full sounding amp tone without having to like Well, the app doesn't have a depth and present control. This will actually give one to you, so you know it has to be good. This is just an impulse response loader. We made the impulse response earlier in the video, and I just loaded that onto this. This is just an impulse response loader. And if we, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but if we preview it a little bit. Maybe we'll put a howler there, just to really, there we go. Actually, this is a busted auto home trick, but he likes to make the boosted sound and the unboosted sound like split like 50-50 and put it into the amp. I don't know what that does, but it's been working pretty well, so let's hear it now. Just cutting out 4K and 6K. I do this on pretty much every tone. This is like cutting out 4K is just something that everybody has to do anyway. But like the 6K is like, that's a trick I learned from the one of the guitarists from Silosis. Josh Middleton. Yeah, he actually did a tutorial on it, and he says that if you just notch the 6K like this, even if your guitar tone is like really like gainy and stuff, it can still sound pretty clear and what have you. So I figured that would help. I don't have to worry nearly as much about dialing the gain a little bit more, which makes the amp sound much more aggressive while maintaining clarity, which is what we want. Okay, it looks good. So we're going to reamp through this. So we're going to hit record, and we're going to reamp both these tracks, and then start mixing this up. Hi. I wound up having to take the DI tracks and then bring them to a whole new file because the DAW kept crashing, so we're gonna have to do this again like this instead. So here's a separate song file where I have all of the guitar tones dialed. This is what a guitar tone typically looks like. I mean, look, as I've mentioned earlier, you can't really expect to actually have an album ready guitar tone with just one microphone or even one guitar amplifier tone for that matter. Usually an album ready, usually a record ready guitar tone usually involves the main tone, and then you have an alternative tone, and then you have and then you have some other enhancers. Usually you dial like multiple guitar tones together. This is what it typically looks like. So here we have the main tone. I'm going to actually put a splitter here so that I can load a custom impulse response on here. Let's disable that and custom IR. Yeah, let's load that up. And we'll load up the next trick. Blending trick right here. We already have the IR from before, and then on the other side of the splitter we have these two. I very well could have picked a different microphone on here, but there isn't a better one because I mean there's something called the U87. I think that would have been a better microphone to use on a guitar cab. Like, I mean, you do have the usual suspects like the 421, 414, the, as you can see here, 906, 57s. This is a problem you'll run into with every neural DSP plugin. They will have one really good gem, and then everything else will just be the typical stuff. The 121s, the 160s, the 57s, the 906s, the 421s. They won't have any like good impulse responses you could actually use to make your tone sound unique, which is a bit of a bummer. But the good news is this cab, the one they recorded with for this plug, the good news is that it uses not just the V30, it also uses the DV77, the Divinity from the, I think it's the McThompson signature cabinet. Yeah. And this is our custom IR. We got a low-tuned essentials, the modern number 1, blended with the custom impulse response I captured with an SM57 and a Beta 52A. Fun fact, most people don't know this, like even Glenn from Spectre Sound doesn't actually know this. Like he claims to have made an error that, oh, I was able to record a guitar cabinet with an SM57 and an Audix D6. Oh, it was an Audix D2 because you want a tom mic and not a kick drum mic. That is not entirely true. Well, I say that because in some cases you can actually get away with recording a guitar tone with a kick drum mic. And even my audio engineering professor has done this like twice. Once with a D112, and thankfully I have my own D112 now. And he's also done it with his Audix D6. He did have an Audix D6, and he actually used it on a guitar cab. Yes, it has happened. So it is possible. It, it might not be what you're looking for, but when you're dealing with 10-string guitarists like I am, you obviously do want that low end dial back in there, so it's kind of vital to actually have kick drum microphones laying around to record guitar caps with. They're not just good for bass caps, they're also great for guitar caps. Yeah, you heard it here first. So there's that going on. And then if we could take the splitter. Oh, am I going to have to? Am I going to have to do this? Oh god, dang it! Error. There we go. And again, we have the amp works here, and we load this with this. Turn that off. I mean, we could. I mean, we could load a. I mean, we could load a. The, we could load a bass cab while we're at it. You know what? Why not? You know what? Why not? Why not? Yeah, we'll load a bass cab. IR. Why not? It'll be fun. I mean, we're not actually supposed to have fun, but we're not actually supposed to have fun, but engineering isn't necessarily a simple solution for everything you do. There is an awful lot of things you have to do so many different ways, and you have to figure things out. There's no one there's no one exact right or wrong method of doing this, and this. So that's better, and we'll hear how that sounds like. Oh, this is the problem around it. Okay, what we'll do is we'll render this. What we'll do is actually what we'll do is we'll disable the auto line on all of these. What we'll do is we'll disable the auto line on all of these, and then what we'll do is I mean this should I mean these should be able to stay. Why not? It's just this and oh, we'll set the what we can do is set the oversampling to normal, because it's not like we're using the because it's not like we're using the it's not like we're using the amplifier or anything, right? We'll set the oversampling to normal, and then we'll open up auto line 2, and then we'll reset all clear access and capture this, and this. Hit control, press and hold control to select, by the way, new group, and then we'll select these two, new group, and then we'll do this. And this is a problem we run into because you can already tell normally auto line is supposed to just keep going until you actually hit the stop button, or some other, like you click somewhere else on timeline there, but for some reason it just stops on its own like this. Please, Sound Radix, please fix this. Anyway, we have that going, and then we will just render this up, and I'll get back to you as soon as we're done. Okay, it took forever to actually get this, get all this rendered out. I couldn't just keep the plugins in their states because, for some reason well, I guess, no. So, these guys. So, the first tone used, as you saw, it was the band amp through the PDQ into the input 1. Band amp FX then into the PDQ into input 1, and then into a DI box into input 1, and then we did all the other stuff to actually get the custom impulse response in there. Another thing to note, when we were dialing this tone on the way in, you may have noticed that oh, never mind. This alternative guitar tone, this is like a backing tone. This was ARCHETYPE NOLLY X. It was this plugin right here. It's already rendered into the thing, but I'm going to pull it up anyway, just to give you which preset I used. These are Dustin Klein, right? Check this guy out. He already has this preset pack available on his Patreon, available for free. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to pay money to access this preset pack. But I use the low rhythm flash like this, and then I crank the level up like that, and then crank the input up a little bit, and then presence used to be here, I increased it just a touch, and then kept everything else roughly the same, maybe increase the gain a little bit, and crank the master up a little more, and then turn the output down, mayhaps. That's what I did for the ARCHETYPE NOLLY tone. I don't like using plugins for guitar tones, but they do come in clutch when you need some other guitar tone to blend it with your real amps. You gotta remember that one guitar amp is not necessarily going to make a guitar tone on its own. It does happen sometimes depending on the genre, but for genres that involve a lot of technical stuff like this, it's very rare. Wait, it was ARCHETYPE, right? I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then for this I used the Fulton Nameless Suite. Fulton Nameless Suite X. This third tone. What I ended up doing with this tone is that I turned off the grind and then set it to low, and then what I ended up doing was I turned the gain down to like roughly about 7 somewhere along the lines of here. I can't remember exactly what level of gain it was. Probably 3, 2. And then what I did was turn the mids up. Treble was still roughly there. No, it was actually also further up. And then presence was dialed like around here. And then for cap section I used for the cap section I used 57 on this side. Like this. Was it a 57? No, it was a condenser 184, sorry. And then on this side I dialed a 906. Like this. And that's the tone I used for somewhat of a clean tone. You may have to tweak the presets up a little bit just to get it sounding a bit closer to what I did. And then this is that back amp, like reamping without the caps on it that we applied on this one. You can hear that also. Sounds gnarly. And then this is what the clean tone sounds like. I try to get it as clean as possible. And then this is this may have been in the NTS suite actually, but no, I don't think so. Oh, you want it may have been the NTS suite actually. Let's see if I remember what I did in the NTS suite. Let's see if I remember what I did in the NTS suite. Girth was around there. Grind was a little higher, probably here. Gain was pretty up, like that. Treble was down a little higher. Middle was up like this. Bass was like up here, I think. Death was dialed back. Presence was dialed like somewhere around here. And then I didn't use a grind pedal, I used this. And then dialed the drive just a little bit on here. And then for cabs, if I recall, it was it a condenser or the 57? Yeah, I think it was condenser 184 actually. And then it was a 906, just like the other one, and we dialed it roughly the same like that. There we go. Yeah, that's what we did for the NTS suite actually. Yeah, I think that's what it was. It doesn't sound like a 6505. I don't like the 6505 to be personally honest with you. It's just done to death. There we go. That is a rough idea of how a guitar tone sounds like. Let's see if we can like, and this is an extra EQ move that I had to do. Dip in the 300 hertz. This allows your guitar tone to sound more like a tube or valve amp, pretty much. And I boosted a bit of air because it didn't sound right. Otherwise, again, 4,000 hertz because you need to cut 4,000 hertz in just about almost anything, really. It's not just guitars, but 4,000 hertz, you definitely need to cut that area. The only exception to this I can think of is probably vocals. Vocals is where 3,000, 4,000, that's where your clarity sits. So with vocals you may need to boost this area, but for everything else, cut the 4,000. And then 6,000 hertz. This is, again, I learned this from Josh Milton. He came up with this idea because when he had to dial the gain back on his guitar tones, just like everyone else, he was noticing that the guitar tones ended up sounding weak. Oh, shut up. The guitar tones ended up sounding weak, and it didn't hit hard enough. It didn't kick people in the teeth hard enough. So instead of trying to reduce the gain to get his clarity, he just ended up notching this frequency, and he was able to maintain the clarity while just hitting harder with his gain. So 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 I so I learned that from him. But I also implemented the the clean tone trick. The clean tone trick came from this YouTuber known as Brandon K. Um, he came with the idea that if you blend a bit of a clean tone, you get some of that stringiness back. And he also came up with the idea of dialing your amp tone without the cap sim to add a little bit more grit to your sound without having to actually dial more gain. Obviously, the real amp, it didn't have a mix control, but it shouldn't be scooped because I dialed it a little back. I dialed the tonal back, so it shouldn't be scooped. And then, what else? Did I miss anything? Right. I will now export this and then send this into a new track as the new guitar tone for the song I was working on, and then I will show you what I've been doing with the bass tone. Okay, bass tones. At first, it looks like I'm doing this, but band processing like everyone else, but I'm really not. What's actually happening is I'm using this Dark Glass Ultra plugin to just get a bit of distortion going, and then I'm using a neural capture of a SansAmp RBI. So and then this guy who uploaded this tone capture, he basically captured the pre section, the RBI, and then he routed that into the power section of his 6505, and the 65 so it's actually an RBI into a power amp, a valve power amp, but it's still a bass amp technically. So I have that on. On the left channel I have the SM7, and then on the right I have the D112, and those allow us to pan the bass tone to stereo, and you actually get a bit of a stereo effect on here. Because you're not getting the tone exactly. You're not getting the tone to sound exactly like each other. So there's going to be a bit of a discrepancy between the two. There is going to be a discrepancy between the two different tones, because they were captured with different microphones. So these two will sound pretty stereo, as you can see here. As you can see here, there's a bit of a discrepancy between the left and the right, and that allows us to get a stereo bass tone. But what we ended up doing was, instead of splitting the bass tones into different bands, what I ended up doing was I started layering bass tones into. It's the same thing I did with guitars, as you saw before. This is basically a DI. It's just an overcompressed DI. This is what that sounds like. Compress the daylights out of, and that blended with this together. That blended this together, you get this one. And then I added one extra layer. This is just for the low end. As you can see, it's high pass and low pass like this. It says just above 30 hertz. It says just above 30 hertz. I boosted the living crap out of 40 hertz, because if the low end were to, because the normal bass tone by itself, even the DI used to sit around 100 hertz, and that's terrible because the guitar sit at 100 hertz, the drums sit at 100 hertz, especially the kick. So I had to get the bass to sit a little lower, so I ended up boosting the 40 hertz to actually offset the 100. Normally I keep the low end pretty clean, but what I end up doing here is I end up adding a bit of drive. Without it, the bass tone ended up sounding a little hollow, and it ended up sounding it didn't sound clear enough, and I could never get the bass tone to sound audible. So what I ended up doing was I ended up distorting it just enough to get that audibility back into the bass. I still have none of these other three channels, none of these were affected with EQ in any way. They're just normal. They're just normal bass tones. They're it's not like I did split band processing like everybody does. It's just an overdrive into a bass amp, just like how a guitar tone is dialed. This is no different really. The only difference is I did a bit of a stereo trick, and I will link I will link the original video where I got this stereo trick from, so that you can try it with yourself. You can try this yourself. Um, the original guy, what he did was he dialed a very similar tone like this, but when he did it, he he obviously used a hardware compressor on here, and then he used parallax to get his bass tones. So you'll find that pretty interesting. But I got sick of I got sick of using parallax. Parallax. The problem with parallax is that the impulse responses they provide, you don't have the D112s, you don't have the RE, what's it called? Yeah, you don't have your, oh, come on. You don't have your RE20s, you don't have your D112s, you don't have your Audix D6, FAT 47, Audix D6, D112, RE20s. You don't have microphones like these. Like, two of these are kick drum mics, but you don't have microphones like these that you don't even have microphones like these that a bass plugin should, and that is very concerning. So I ended up ditching parallax altogether, and I just I dialed I dialed a literal bass amp instead, and I got this bass tone. This is what I use on Super Drummer. The kick is the kicks are basically I have the alternative hits on. The kicks are basically the almost the entire kit is the metal pack, except I was able to buy one of the presets packs from way back that I was able to copy onto here. I did some tweaks. There used to not be a few symbols on here, so I added them up. And then I added this little kick right here. Why is it not showing? Why is it not showing? Oh god. If I could just... Let's just rest microphones. There we go. BD909 ambient kick. Yeah. So what I ended up doing was I gotta make sure to... So, yeah. This and this, they're layered on top of each other to get punchy drum tones like this, and then the toms are untouched from the presets, but I did change the snare. this snare. This is actually I don't recall which drum it was. Hold on. Not just my microphone. There we go. This is from the Superior Drummer 3. I did buy Superior Drummer, by the way. This is from Superior Drummer 3, and I don't know why it's in X snare. It should be blended in with snare. There we go. Superior Drummer 3. Tomo Bell Brass. There we go. It's a brass snare. Fat metal snare. I don't know what they used to record that snare drum, but this is brass snare, and this is a brass snare. Brass snare drums are really like, lots of people like brass snare drums. I know for a fact that Periphery, they pride themselves on a bronze snare drum. The whole shell is made out of bronze, and they had the right idea. These bronze and brass snares, they sound really cracking. If I can, there we go. There we go. They sound super cracking once you get the compression on it. Which, yeah, I'm gonna have to start putting some compression on it right here. This is just getting super annoying. How does that sound? How does that sound? Let's try. How does that sound? Let's try. Anyway, so the right, it's over here. There we go. There we go. Now it sounds like super cracking and everything. Let's dial this back a little bit here. There we go. Now you got a cracking snare like that. That's why you want your snare drums to be made out of metal rather than wood. I genuinely wish kick drums were made out of bronze as well. That's the snare. That's the drum setup. And then we should. I think we should. Pan this to the left and pan this to the right. There we go. There we go. Actually, let's just do this here. There we go. There we go. Bit too much. There we go. And on the whole thing, I added basement, unfiltered audio, this allows you to this allows this kind of doubles as a stereo expander because anything under 120 hertz is automatically going to be turned into mono, and this is how I was able to get away with using drastic pans on the kick drums like this. I actually like it when the kick drums there's a left kick drum and a right kick drum and they're pan accordingly, because if they're both pan center, then what's the point of having two kick drums? I generally don't get people that would just mic two kick drums and then just pan them dead center anyway, or turn them into mono anyway, which I generally don't get it. I would much rather have them panned a little so that you get a bit of a distinction. It sounds more like you're hearing an actual kit. But anything below 120 hertz, it's going to be turned into mono anyway, so that it allows you to get a better stereo image out of your mix. I have this to like add a bit of compression on here. And then I added a bit of a delay and a reverb on the leads. I mean, I normally don't do this. I usually like my guitar tones just dry and bare bones, but it's a lead tone. It's a lead tone. You want a bit of you want it to stand out just a little bit. So I blended it just enough to make the guitar tone stand out, the lead tone just stand out a little bit. But other than that, it's barely dialed in. almost not there. I usually keep it very sparing when it comes to delay and reverb. If I could get away with it, I would just not have any at all, period. And even when I play live, like, I just have my high gain tone, and then that's literally it. I just have my amp, my cab, and that's literally all for, I don't bring any, like, I may bring a boost pedal, but other than that, I don't use any reverb. I don't use any delay on my guitar shots. Not even when I'm soloing. I just keep it dry. I just keep it bare bones. I I'm fully convinced that a genuinely good sounding punchy punchy main tone by itself is going to be a million leagues better than some 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 amateurish tone with a lot of reverb and delay on it. it Lots of people like to buy a bunch of analog reverb delay pedals just to, oh, it sounds amazing, oh, it sounds amazing, and then, they build an entire pedal board around it. It's just, I generally don't get it. I'm pretty sure that if you just have a good solid tone, if you just have a good solid, like, tone, like, from like from coming from your amp, your cab, that's all you need, really. But yeah, I end up needing just barely a bit of reverb and delay on the lead tone there. Other than that, yeah, that's the entire, like, I do have a super soul. They did offer this for free. They did offer this for free. I didn't pirate any of this. I didn't pirate any of this. They did offer this for free. It was available for free at one point. I don't know, but I just use this, and then that's all I have for, like, for synths. I normally layer a lot of different synths. Like, I have bells, I have super souls, I have string sections, I have brass sections, I have, like, an entire orchestra, just layers upon layers of layers, and then I have the the sniper rifle trick from Joey Sturgis. I'll do this, and this, but this was supposed to be a bit of a bluff on my Valentine style, so I just kept it, like, bare bones, and that's all I have for now. Yeah, all applicable links available in the description below. Until next time, remember, Ragnarok awaits.